Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the cause of Christ among Free Will Baptists and around the world. Today we have with us Dr. Tom Malone. You have probably heard of him. He was the fourth president, I believe it was, of Free Will Baptist Bible College in Nashville, Tennessee. Pastored for over 19 years in Florence, Alabama.
Nearly
First
20.
church there,
Yeah.
nearly 20 years. Yeah. And most recently pastored at New Hope Free Will Baptist Church, and where Corey mentors there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it is so good to have you here with us
Thank you,
today,
brother.
Dr. Malone.
Good to be here.
Hey, you grew up in a pastor's home, didn't you?
Yes, my father.
What was that like? His name was Wallace
Malone. My dad was a church builder, and we moved to different places. Dad started some churches, but Dad also was used to the Lord to revive churches that were dying, and we were in the church all the time. Mm-hmm. Dad loved the church, taught his children to love the church, and my mother too. My mother was a Sunday school teacher for many, many years. Yeah.
So you had a good memory. Probably had to walk a tight line, I suspect, growing up in the church there.
Yes, and I didn't always stay on that tight line, but I was expected to.
So, no, you're probably the model, I'm sure. No, you did the best you could, and at some point, though, you felt like you were called into the ministry. Tell us a bit about that.
It really happened when I was at camp, youth camp there in Southern Illinois. My dad started that camp.
Wow.
Before it moved out to Hope. But anyhow, at a camp, the evangelist that year preached on the last service on giving your life. They called it back then consecration.
Uh-huh.
And you surrender your life to the Lord. And a bunch of us children went forward. I went with my older brother. And I got to hurry this story up, but when we all stood up from the altar, they asked us why we had come. I was standing next to my older brother. He said, the Lord has called me to sing. And Brother Eddie, amazingly, for all these 60, 70 years, my brother Ron has led music in churches for Dad and now then for his nephew, our nephew. But I was next, so they said, Tom, why did you come? I said, well, the Lord called me to sing. But he didn't. Uh-huh. That night, as about 12, 13-year-old, I knew God called me to preach.
Wow.
And for the next 4 or 5 years, rebellion. Finally, one Sunday night, when that same brother was singing, just before my dad preached, he was singing, "No one ever cared for me like Jesus."
Oh.
And while he was singing, I got out of my seat, about the third row from the front, and went forward and gave my life away to Jesus. And answered. Came the next 2 days later to Free Will Baptist Bible College, where I'd never been.
Wow. Yeah. So it was kind of quick in that respect. You really nailed it down. Yeah. About 3 days later, you're in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah. Yes.
So was that like the late 50s or so?
It was in January of 1959.
Wow. Okay. So you show up on the campus. You think immediately they thought, this is one of our future presidents. Is that the way the faculty viewed you in those days?
That was the first thing from my mind and everybody who knew me's mind, too. But I often said when I was a student, if I was ever president of this place, I'd straighten it up. And then the time came, and it's not that easy.
Yeah. So you had a lot of ideas, and about 1990 or so, you got to put that into practice. But before that, you met a young lady. Was Verna from South Carolina?
Darlington, South Carolina.
Wow.
Yes, Verna was, and the first church there. She had some outstanding pastors. One of the most outstanding was Brother Rufus Coffey and his wife, Miss Maud. But Miss Coffey had such an impact on my wife's life.
Wow. That is great. So you end up pastoring a couple of places before you went to Florence.
I pastored in Flat River, Missouri, which is now Park Hills. And then before that, I pastored at Ina, Illinois, where my son-in-law now pastors. And my dad had pastored before I did.
Oh, my. So they've got quite, is that where Brad's at? Wow. So they've got quite the history there.
Yes.
So really, when we used to think about you, we would think about Florence, Alabama. For Illinois fellow to be thought of in Florence, Alabama, something was going on. So you got to tell us a bit about what was that ministry like down in Alabama?
The most exciting years of my life. And there I raised my children, my family. And there God did some wonderful things. I didn't really know what I was doing, but God did use me. And that was in the days of the bus ministry. It was a pretty big thing for us. And we had buses, and we brought children in from everywhere. We brought in children on buses, 200 and 300.
Wow.
And our attendance in those good days would run from 500 to 700 people. We had big days of 1,500 or better. And most every Sunday someone was saved, or our altars with people coming forward. I learned so much in those days about just loving people, and it kind of directed my life as to what God was going to do with my life. I didn't really foresee myself as coming back to the college.
Yeah,
I foresaw myself as staying the pastor, and just trying to build a church and loving people. And I thought about coming. What would I say to somebody about a ministry like we had? And I would tell young preachers, love your people.
Yeah.
Love your people. See yourself long term staying there. Invest in the children. Put your best people with your children, Brother Eddie. Children grow up. They get married. They have children. And you want to build them into the church family. Make them a part of it so that as they mature, they come back to the church, they stay with the church, and you continue the ministry. But loving the people.
That's the key, isn't it?
Loving the people.
See, a lot of people came out of that church. A lot of people ministering
around the world today.
Yes. Impacted that community. You had a school there.
I started Florence Christian Academy. Yes. Yeah. And that's not. I would tell preachers, love your community. Go where the people are. You don't win people by staying in an office or whatever else. Go to the ball games.
There you go.
And take your family with you. Let them see you're a family person. Let them see you involved in their lives and their children, watching their children.
Right.
And they'll open their hearts to you. But invest in the community. Put your life in that church and in that community. That's where God puts you.
That is great. And that was true in the 70s and the 80s, and it's true today, too.
It's good today. It still works if you'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had 5 daughters.
Yes, sir.
Growing up there in the community, and as you're interacting and you're going along.
They were the greatest asset I had outside of my investment in the Lord was my daughters and wife. They had friends, and then they brought those friends, and then they worked in our bus ministry. They were involved in our youth ministry. They did everything, and they're still doing it.
And so that sounds like that was a key at Florence.
Yes, it was.
It's not that you were going off and ministering and then coming home, but the kids were involved, your wife was involved, and enjoyed it. And it seems to be evident because they're all in ministry in some way today as well. So it gave them apparently a positive view of the ministry, it looks like.
Yes. As a matter of fact, it took us a long time to finally not try to equate every place we were with the ministry at Florence.
Yeah.
But the same things that work there will work anywhere today. And loving the people, loving where God puts you, staying long term.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good. So if I were to sum that up, I'm a young pastor. I'm listening in. Whatever time period, this goes back to the scriptures. I love my people. I love my community. I love my family. And all those things can work together to build a solid church.
Yes.
And it's carried on with where the people that you all minister to in those days, where they've ended up, and even where your families ended up. They've taken that wherever they've gone.
We still get messages. Some of the fellows who are on staff with me, Brother Frank Owens, one of them. We still get messages from people kids who were saved there and have grown up and have families now. And I said, I remember when I got saved. I remember the youth ministry, junior church, etc.
There you go. Well, and your story kept coming back to Free Will Baptist Bible College. You were a trustee and I think chair of the trustees for many years.
I served 2 terms, and then I served another term for a man who was killed.
Oh.
And I served 16 years as a trustee, the last 6 years as chairman, and then I went off for 2 years, and they asked me to come back then.
That was like 1990?
1990.
So here you go as a student. You had all these ideas. And when you get there on the campus, how did that go?
Well, I loved the college, and I may not be answering your question directly, but I had some ideas about the college. I wanted it to be a place to train pastors and missionaries, but not every young man and every young lady is going to be a preacher or a missionary. Mm-hmm. And my daughters, I want them to have ministry too. I want them to be involved in ministry. They're all school teachers, but I want them to be good, godly school teachers. And so I wanted to certify those teachers where they could go teach anywhere. And the faculty there and those that helped bring that place to pass, really, not only just a certification, but our accreditation too. Our teachers could go anywhere to teach.
Yes. And I guess that took you down the road of getting SACS, COC accreditation. And
yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that was quite a feat. What year did that happen?
I was afraid you'd ask that.
And I don't remember myself.
I don't remember exactly either. It was
it had to be the early 90s.
In the mid-90s,
somewhere.
Maybe. Mid to late 90s, I'd say, Eddie.
Well,
a long process. It was a long process.
Yes. And I remember, I think you had Dr. Fields, of course, Dr. Piccarilli, and all the faculty that we knew.
All the credit goes to those fellows, really. Dr. Fields, Dr. Pick, and Dr. Garnet Reed, and all those men.
Yes,
and
yes.
I hate to call all the names because there's so many that were involved in that. Brother Bert Tippett, who's now in heaven, he was so involved in that. Bert was such a help to me in many ways. Probably one of the greatest men the college ever had was Bert Tippett and Diane Tippett, the best couple.
Wonderful, wonderful people. Yeah. And so you guys worked real hard on that. And in doing so, it made it possible for people to be able to go off to graduate school, people to be able to teach in different places. And it's just a wonderful accomplishment. You also, I remember, talking a lot about moving the college and acquired some property like 123 acres or
something. We acquired some acreage in Cheatham County and Davidson County, but then and when I finally retired, and this metro made it almost impossible for us to develop that land. Mm-hmm. Dr. Pinson and the board found that beautiful piece of property now, and I am so proud. That is a beautiful campus now, a beautiful college, and I'm so thankful for Dr. Pinson too.
Yes,
doing an excellent job.
Yes, and you kind of, in your day, kind of got that going, and people, if you
that was the vision.
Yeah, you buy some property, then
we bought 126 acres there, and yes, and planned to move. Had the city worked with us, probably would have.
That was kind of an investment too, though, because
yes, it was.
Eventually, that Dr. Pinson and his team were able to sell that, use that on the current campus.
It was just an extension of the vision and the dream to have a new campus, which we had to have.
It's true. It's true. And so how long were you there as the president at?
12 years as president, 3 years as chancellor, a total of 15.
All right.
15 years.
And sometimes when you quit being a president, you ride off into the sunset and just kind of hang out. Some people would play golf, I suppose. You didn't go play golf all the time, did you?
I'm not a golfer.
So what did you do during that time?
I held revivals. I went back into preaching revivals, and then got the call to come to New Hope since the pastor resigned, but I filled in for a couple Sundays. And I said, well, yes, I called the chairman of the board to recommend someone. And the chairman said, well, said, I'm supposed to be calling you to ask if you'd come and just fill in. I said, well, yes, I'll do that. And I was there 2 Sundays, and they asked me if I would stay. I said, no, I can't stay because as an interim, I can't be a candidate. They said, well, we're going to change the rules, so we want you to consider. I said, well, and of course I became pastor, stayed 4 years. I didn't intend for it to be long, Eddie. I just intended to. The church had been through some difficult times.
Yeah.
And they had a beautiful new plant in Deadiness, and stay long enough to get everything settled down and bring some folks back, get some folks saved, and that all happened. And all the while, God was preparing Brother Corey Mentor.
He was. Now, was he already there?
He'd been there just a few months ahead of me.
Okay.
Yes.
So the church was having some trouble. Then you end up going over there and pastoring. And my daughter, when she was a student at Welch College, she would go to New Hope to church.
Really?
Yes. And there were so many people there that if you didn't get there in time, if you tarried, ate an extra cinnamon roll before going to the church, you wouldn't have a seat. That is kind of a transition, isn't it, from struggling and then having so many people. Even during the pandemic, they've had good attendance.
We still have great attendance. We have 250, 300 coming now on Sunday mornings. We were running 350, 400 and upwards, before. Brother Corey was a perfect fit for New Hope Church.
Yes. So he was there, so I can't say you found him, but how is it that, sometimes when a pastor steps away, again, there's turmoil and there's difficulty. How did you guys have this transition where the church really hasn't missed a beat?
The board asked me if I had anybody, when I told them, I said, fellas, I told you I wasn't going to stay long.
Yeah.
Who do you recommend? I said, the first fellow you got to give a chance is Corey Mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, all right. And he got a unanimous vote.
There you go.
And I love him like a son.
Yeah.
And he's made a place for me. He and the board, and it's a perfect fit. Mm-hmm. I'm one of his biggest cheerleaders.
Oh, no doubt. And I encourage all of our folks kind of look at that. You can see on Facebook, you can follow the church, what they're doing, and just kind of watch. It gives us an example of what can be.
Every situation where a retiring pastor tries to remain doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I have thought about it. We don't have time, but the ingredients that it takes to make that work. But one thing in my mind was that he is the pastor. Mm-hmm. I'm not the pastor anymore. Mm-hmm. And he's the pastor.
Yes.
And I call him my pastor, my preacher.
Mm-hmm. I heard you say that. Yeah. And so, and being able to step back and not nitpick and all those things. Oh, yeah, kind of applying Philippians 2.
And there's a part of it I'm glad he has that I don't have anymore.
That's right. So you can truly enjoy it and really see the fruit of some of the work you've done and all in his work and see it all come together.
He's building on it.
He is. Yeah.
We've just bought 126 acres right adjacent to the church.
Wow.
And we're going to grow. That's the only way we could go. So the Lord gave us that land, and when all of this is passed, we're going to go back to expand.
Yes.
Keep on reaching people.
It's true. And it looks like even during the pandemic, you still got momentum. It's still going. It's still going well.
Our people coming, our giving is good or better than it was before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, earlier you gave some advice like young preachers could take. Okay, I love my people. I love my community. I concentrate on my family, involved in the ministry. You just kind of gave us a bit of advice on, I'm an older pastor. It sounds like you might say, try to identify somebody that could take your place and step back and let them take the reins, so to speak, by supporting them. Any other advice? You're almost.
That is, if you can find some young man who God has called,
yes,
and let him come in and get to know the church, know the people, know the ministry, and then you have confidence in, let you and the church just turn the reins of leadership over to him and let him go with it. Again, that doesn't work in every situation, but if the pastor who's there will prayerfully consider and ask around some young men, it
could help. And that's a problem we have right now. We've lost pastors, actually even from the pandemic. And so it's helpful to always be thinking of, who can step in. I talked to a pastor last week. He almost died from COVID. And he said that was the thing that just really bothered me. Who will take my place? Yes. So we really want to be thinking about that and trying to train those people that'll step up.
I got a bit of good news this past Sunday morning. One of my grandsons, Brother Corey, gave him opportunities but announced his call to the ministry this past Sunday morning. Mac, Marianne's middle boy. And God's going to use him.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, you have done a lot for our denomination. You've done a lot for the work of the Lord, and I just want you to know we appreciate you. We appreciate your wife. We appreciate your family, and we're indebted to you for the great service that you provided to our denomination and to the kingdom. Hey, let's close out in prayer, okay? Father, I thank you for Dr. Malone. I thank you for how he answered the call into the ministry so many years ago. I thank you for how you faithfully used him. We think about Florence. We think about what you did with him at Welch. And then this last page of the book, what's happened there at New Hope that we really notice today. Thank you for that. I ask that you'll continue to use him, continue to take care of Miss Malone and the family, and just be with them. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you, my brother, for joining us.
Forgive me. Thank you for the opportunity. We took us a little to do, and I got those stitches out yesterday.
Oh my!
7 of them up here out yesterday. So
whoa! So you have been through it, and you still came through to do this interview today. That is all right, brother.
I'm trying to get rebuilt here in my later.
And we want to thank all our listeners for coming in today. Please like our podcast, if you will, on Facebook. Share it with those that you encounter on YouTube, because we truly are better together.